Lisa Carter sat in the large white room aboard Concordia Prime and tried not to show how nervous she felt. The space station was huge and filled with creatures from across the galaxy. She had been Earth's ambassador for 3 years now, but meetings with the full council of 7 still made her heart beat faster. The room had 7 tall chairs arranged in a half circle. Each chair was different because each species needed different things to be comfortable. The Altarian chair looked like it was made of blue crystal. The Veltar seat was filled with some kind of glowing water. The Xanthari chair was just a floating metal platform. Lisa looked at her notes one more time. Today was supposed to be simple. They would talk about trade routes and mineral rights, nothing complicated. Nothing that would cause problems. Admiral Jake Morrison sat beside her. He was a big man with gray hair and serious eyes. Jake had been in space longer than almost any other human. He knew how to deal with aliens in their strange ways. Lisa felt better having him there. The first counselor to speak was Vexton from the Altarian Republic. He was tall and thin with skin that looked like blue glass. When he moved his head, the light from the room made patterns across his face. "Ambassador Carter," Vexton said in his musical voice, "we are pleased to discuss trade matters with Earth today. Your species has proven to be valuable partners in commerce." Lisa smiled and nodded. "Thank you, Counselor Vexton. Earth is happy to expand our relationships with all Alliance members." The next hour passed smoothly. They talked about shipping lanes and mining agreements. The Aquatic Federation wanted more fish from Earth's oceans. The Veltar Collective offered new energy crystals in exchange for human-made electronics. Everything was going exactly as planned. Then Counselor Ixara leaned forward in her water-filled chair. She was from the Veltar, and her body was made of what looked like living crystal that changed colors when she spoke. "There is another matter," Ixara said. Her voice sounded like wind chimes. "The recent events in the Outer Rim have raised questions. Among our peoples," Lisa felt Jake tense beside her. The Outer Rim meant the Kethmori raids. That was military business and not something they were supposed to discuss in trade meetings. "What kind of questions?" Lisa asked carefully. Vexton spoke again. The Kethmori had terrorized the outer systems for over 200 years. No single species had ever been able to stop them completely. Yet human forces defeated them in less than 6 months. The room became quiet. Lisa could hear the soft humming of the station's life support systems. All 7 counselors were looking at her now. "We are curious about human military methods," said Counselor Zephon from his tank of blue water. The Aquatic Federation members' tentacles moved slowly as he spoke. "Our own forces fought the Kethmori many times. We used our best ships and weapons. Still, they always escaped to raid again." Lisa felt her mouth go dry. This was not supposed to happen. Military doctrine was classified information. She could not talk about human war tactics even with allied species. "I appreciate your curiosity," Lisa said slowly, "but military operations are not something I can discuss in detail." Counselor Nethka from the insectoid hive clicked her mandibles together. The sound was like 2 pieces of metal hitting each other. "Surely basic strategy can be shared among allies." "We fought the same enemy," Jake Morrison cleared his throat. "With respect, counselors, military doctrine requires different levels of security clearance. Ambassador Carter is not authorized to discuss operational details." The 7 aliens looked at each other. Lisa had learned to read some of their expressions over the years. She could see they were not satisfied with that answer. Vexton-esque crystal skin seemed to glow brighter. "Ambassador Carter, the Kethmori were not ordinary raiders. They had ships that could disappear from sensors, weapons that could tear through our strongest shields. They moved like ghosts and struck like lightning. Yet human forces destroyed their entire fleet," added Ixara. "Not defeated, not scattered, completely destroyed? How does a species that has been in space for less than 50 years accomplish what we could not do in 2 centuries? Lisa looked at Jake. The Admiral's face showed nothing, but she could see the concern in his eyes. This was becoming a problem. "Perhaps," Lisa said carefully, "this discussion would be better suited for a military briefing between our defense departments." Counselor Yethmer from the Silicon Collective spoke for the first time. His voice sounded like grinding stone. We are not asking for weapon specifications or fleet positions. We simply wish to understand human tactical thinking. The questions kept coming. How did humans coordinate their attacks? Why were human ships so effective in close combat? What kind of training did human soldiers receive? Each question pushed closer to information that Lisa could not share. Jake Morrison received a message on his communication device. He read it quickly and his expression became even more serious. Lisa knew that meant Earth Command was watching this conversation. Counselors, Lisa said, standing up from her chair, I believe we need to request a recess. These questions require consultation with my government. The 7 aliens looked surprised. In 3 years of meetings, Lisa had never asked for a recess. Is there some problem with our questions? Vexen asked. His blue skin had gone darker. No problem, Lisa said quickly. It is simply that military information has different rules than trade information. I need to speak with Earth about what I can and cannot discuss. Counselor Ixara's crystal body flashed several colors. How long would such consultation require? Jake Morrison stood up beside Lisa. 24 hours should be sufficient. The counselors looked at each other again. Lisa could feel the tension in the room growing. What had started as a simple trade meeting was becoming something much more complicated. Very well, Vexen said finally. We will reconvene tomorrow at the same time. But Ambassador Carter, understand that the Alliance has legitimate security interests. If humans possess military capabilities that could affect galactic stability, the Council has a right to know. Lisa nodded but said nothing. As she and Jake left the chamber, she could hear the counselors talking among themselves in their various languages. None of it sounded friendly. In the corridor outside, Jake pulled out his communication device again. I need to contact Earth Command immediately, he told Lisa. This is bigger than a simple diplomatic meeting now. Lisa looked back at the closed doors of the council chamber. Inside those doors, 7 species were asking questions about human warfare. Questions that she could not answer without revealing things that might change everything between humans and the rest of the galaxy. Tomorrow would bring more questions. And Lisa was not sure Earth would be willing to provide the answers. General Patricia Hayes walked into the secure briefing room deep under the Pentagon. The message from Concordia Prime had reached Earth 6 hours ago, and already the Joint Chiefs of Staff were gathering for an emergency session. Patricia had seen many crises in her 30-year career, but this felt different. The room filled quickly with the most senior military officers on Earth. Admiral Morrison's report from the space station was displayed on the large screen at the front of the room. Patricia read through it again and felt her concern growing. Gentlemen and ladies, Patricia said as she stood at the head of the long table, we have a situation that could affect Earth's position in the galactic community. Director of Intelligence Mike Sullivan opened a thick folder marked with multiple security warnings. The aliens are asking questions we cannot answer without revealing capabilities that give us significant advantages. General Robert Kane from the Air Force looked confused. What advantages? We use the same energy weapons and shield technology as everyone else. Mike Sullivan shook his head. That is exactly the problem, General. They think we use the same methods they do. They have no idea how differently humans approach warfare. Patricia activated the wall display and brought up a comparison chart. Look at this analysis of alien military doctrine from the past 5 years. Every species in the Alliance fights the same way. They use single ships or small groups. They avoid civilian areas. They try to minimize casualties on both sides. She changed the display to show human tactical manuals. Now look at human doctrine, combined arms tactics. Overwhelming force concentration, acceptable loss ratios, strategic targeting of infrastructure. The room became quiet as the officers studied the information. Colonel Emma Price from Marine Intelligence spoke first. They fight like they are playing a game with rules. We fight like we are trying to end the war as quickly as possible. Exactly, Patricia said. And they have no idea that this difference exists. To them, the Kethmori were an impossible enemy because they refused to follow the normal rules of engagement, but those same tactics were nothing special to us. Mike Sullivan pulled up another file. Our intelligence suggests that no alien species has ever developed the concept of total war. They do not understand fighting an enemy until that enemy no longer exists as a functioning society. General Kane looked uncomfortable. Are we talking about genocide? We are talking about doctrine, Patricia replied. A capability to completely destroy an enemy's ability to make war. Not just defeat their military, but eliminate their entire war-making infrastructure. Admiral Susan Clark from the Navy raised her hand. What exactly did Ambassador Carter tell them? Patricia brought up the transcript from the council meeting. She told them nothing, but that refusal to answer is making them more suspicious. They are starting to think we have some kind of super weapon. Mike Sullivan laughed, but there was no humor in it. If only they knew the truth. We do not have better weapons. We have better ideas about how to use the weapons we have. The discussion continued for 2 hours. Every officer in the room understood the problem. Human military thinking was so different from alien approaches that revealing it might change Earth's relationships with every species in the galaxy. Meanwhile, on Concordia, Prime, the alien diplomats were having their own meetings in the Altarian section of the station. Counselor Vexton met with representatives from the other 6 species. Something is not right about the human response, Vexton said. His blue skin was darker than normal, which meant he was worried. They acted like we had asked for their most secret information. Counselor Ixara's crystal body flashed yellow and orange. Perhaps they do possess advanced technology. Earth is a young civilization. Maybe they developed something we have not seen before. The Zenthari representative was a floating metal sphere called Unit 779. Its mechanical voice filled the room. Analysis suggests humans defeated Kethmori through superior tactics rather than superior technology. Kethmori ships were recovered intact, no evidence of unknown weapons. Counselor Nethka clicked her mandibles thoughtfully. Then what makes human tactics so effective that they must be kept secret? No one had an answer to that question. In another part of the station, Counselor Zephon was meeting privately with some of his own people. The Aquatic Federation had fought the Kethmori longer than anyone else. They had lost thousands of ships and millions of lives to the raiders. The humans destroyed the entire Kethmori fleet in the Battle of Zarian Prime, Zephon said. Our analysis shows they used standard Alliance weapons and shield technology. Yet they achieved total victory in less than 4 hours. Commander Rivka moved his tentacles in confusion. How is that possible? We fought them at Zarian Prime 6 times. Each time we had more ships than the humans used. Each time the Kethmori escaped. That is what we need to find out, Zephon replied. The humans know something about warfare that we do not. Back on Earth, the security meeting was reaching a conclusion. General Hayes looked around the table at her fellow officers. We have 3 options, she said. First, we can continue to refuse to answer their questions. Second, we can give them limited information and hope they stop asking. Third, we can tell them the complete truth about human military doctrine. Admiral Clark shook her head. Option 3 is not possible. If they knew how we really think about warfare, they might decide we are too dangerous to remain in the Alliance. General Kane agreed. Some of our contingency plans include scenarios where we fight other Alliance members. That is standard planning, but they might not see it that way. Mike Sullivan opened another classified file. Actually, gentlemen, that brings up another problem. Our intelligence division has developed detailed battle plans for fighting every species in the Alliance. Not because we expect war, but because good intelligence means being prepared for any possibility. The room became very quiet. Every officer knew about those plans, but hearing it said out loud made the implications clear. How detailed? Patricia asked. Complete order of battle for every Alliance fleet. Economic targets that would cripple their war production. Psychological warfare tactics designed specifically for each species. Plans for planetary blockades and orbital bombardment. Colonel Price looked pale. They asked us how we fight. We cannot tell them that we have already planned how to destroy each of them. Patricia nodded slowly. That is exactly the problem. Human military planning is not just about defeating enemies. It is about being ready for any possible conflict. But to other species, that kind of thinking might look like preparation for betrayal. Admiral Morrison's next message arrived as the meeting was ending. The Alien Council was becoming more suspicious. Some species were starting to increase security around human ships and personnel. The Xanthuri had begun scanning human vessels with deep penetration sensors. They are getting nervous, Patricia said. And nervous allies can become former allies very quickly. Mike Sullivan closed his files. We need to make a decision soon. Every hour we delay makes them more suspicious about what we might be hiding. Patricia looked around the room one more time. I will speak with the president. But everyone in this room needs to understand something. Whatever we decide to tell the aliens about human warfare is going to change our relationship with them forever. As the officers filed out of the room, Patricia remained behind to study the intelligence reports from space. The aliens were asking questions about human military methods. They had no idea that the real answer was not about weapons or technology. The real answer was about how humans thought about war itself. And that answer might be too frightening for the galaxy to accept. Dr. Kevin Walsh stepped off the transport ship and onto Concordia Prime carrying a single black briefcase. Inside were carefully selected historical records that Earth Command had spent 18 hours choosing. The decision had been made to give the Alien Council some answers, but not all of them. Lisa Carter met him at the docking bay. She looked tired and stressed. The past day had been difficult with constant questions from alien diplomats who wanted to know why humans were being so secretive. Dr. Walsh, Lisa said as they shook hands, I hope you have something that will satisfy their curiosity without creating bigger problems. Kevin nodded. He was a thin man with gray hair who had spent his entire career studying human military history. General Hayes briefed me personally. We are going to show them selected conflicts from our past. Nothing too recent and nothing too revealing. Admiral Morrison joined them as they walked through the station corridors. The Council is very suspicious now. 3 species have requested private meetings to offer technology trades in exchange for military information. The Xanthari have been scanning our ships constantly. They entered the council chamber where all 7 alien representatives were waiting. The atmosphere felt different from the previous day. More tense and watchful. Counselor Vexton spoke first. Ambassador Carter, we appreciate Earth's willingness to address our concerns. We hope today's discussion will help us understand human capabilities better. Lisa stood and gestured to Dr. Walsh. This is Dr. Kevin Walsh from Earth's Military History Institute. He has prepared a presentation about human military development. Dr. Walsh activated his portable display system and the first images appeared on the chamber's main screen. They showed armies from Earth's American Civil War with soldiers in blue and gray uniforms. To understand modern human military thinking, Dr. Walsh began, you must first understand our history. This conflict occurred over 150 years ago between 2 parts of our planet. The alien counselors leaned forward to study the images. They showed men with primitive rifles and cannon. These weapons seem very basic, Counselor. Ixara observed, her crystal body flickered with curiosity. How does this relate to your modern capabilities? Dr. Walsh changed the display to show factories and railroads. The important part was not the weapons but the industrial capacity. One side produced over 2 million rifles during the conflict. They built thousands of miles of railroad to move supplies. They organized entire populations to support the war effort. Counselor Zephon's tentacles moved thoughtfully. 2 million rifles for a single conflict on one planet? That was considered a small war by later standards, Dr. Walsh replied. Let me show you our next major conflict. The display changed to show World War II factories with workers building aircraft and tanks. The production numbers appeared on screen and several counselors made sounds of surprise. 50,000 aircraft in a single year? Unit 779. asked in its mechanical voice. From one industrial complex? From one country? Dr. Walsh corrected. Multiple countries were producing at similar rates. The total war production involved converting entire planetary economies to military manufacturing. Dr. Walsh showed images of massive shipbuilding yards where hundreds of vessels were under construction simultaneously. He explained how human societies could reorganize themselves completely for warfare in a matter of months. We call this total war doctrine, he said. The idea that an entire civilization's resources can be directed toward military victory. The aliens looked confused. Counselor Nethka clicked her mandibles. But what about your normal economic activities? Food production? Civilian needs? Everything becomes part of the war effort, Dr. Walsh explained. Civilian factories are converted to weapon manufacturing. Food is rationed to ensure military. Supplies? Transportation systems are redirected to move military equipment. Vexthen's blue skin had become very dark. You are describing the complete militarization of society. How do your people survive such conditions? Sacrifice is considered patriotic duty, Dr. Walsh said simply. Citizens accept reduced living standards to support victory. The presentation continued with Cold War doctrine. Dr. Walsh carefully explained the concept of nuclear deterrence and mutually assured destruction. The alien counselors became completely silent as they tried to understand weapons designed to destroy entire planets. These nuclear weapons, Counselor Ythmer said slowly, they can eliminate all life on a world. That is the intended purpose. Dr. Walsh confirmed. The strategy was to make war so destructive that no rational leader would start one. Ixara's crystal body flashed rapidly through different colors. You built weapons specifically designed to commit planetary genocide? Thousands of them, Dr. Walsh said. And delivery systems that could reach any target on the planet within 30 minutes. The chamber fell completely silent. Dr. Walsh could see that the aliens were struggling to process this information. Their own wars had always been limited. Affairs with clear rules and minimal civilian casualties. Counselor Zephon was the first to speak again. But surely this is ancient history. Your modern military must be more civilized. Dr. Walsh looked at Admiral Morrison, who gave a slight nod. Actually, our modern doctrine retains many of these same principles. We still maintain nuclear arsenals. We still plan for total war scenarios. But you are members of the Galactic Alliance. Vexthen protested. You have agreed to follow civilized warfare conventions. Admiral Morrison stood up. We follow Alliance rules when fighting Alliance conflicts. But our own military doctrine remains unchanged. Dr. Walsh brought up his final presentation slides showing recent training exercises. The aliens watched human soldiers practicing urban warfare with combined air and ground attacks. The level of destruction considered acceptable in achieving objectives clearly shocked them. In this training scenario, Dr. Walsh explained, human forces are practicing how to capture a city while minimizing their own casualties. Civilian areas may be targeted if they provide military advantage. Counselor Nethka made a sound like grinding metal. You target non-combatants? We target anything that helps the enemy? Admiral Morrison replied. Military bases, factories, transportation hubs, communication centers, power plants. Modern warfare requires destroying the enemy's ability to fight. The presentation ended with footage of a simulated nuclear strike against a military installation. The aliens watched a massive explosion that would have killed millions of civilians in a real scenario. This is considered a limited tactical strike, Dr. Walsh said, designed to eliminate specific military targets while minimizing overall destruction. The chamber erupted in several alien languages as the counselors talked among themselves. Lisa could see the shock and confusion on their faces. What humans considered normal military planning was beyond their comprehension when the noise died down. Vexthen spoke for all of them. Dr. Walsh, are you telling us that this footage represents restraint? Dr. Walsh looked uncomfortable. Yes, Counselor. These are training exercises using limited engagement rules. Limited compared to what? Ixara asked. Her crystal body was now flashing red and orange. Admiral Morrison realized he had said too much. Compared to full-scale warfare doctrine, which requires higher security clearance to discuss. The 7 aliens looked at each other with expressions that needed no translation. Fear was universal across all species. Counselor Zephon asked the question that everyone was thinking. Admiral Morrison, what security clearance would be required to see your actual military doctrine? Morrison felt the weight of every eye in. The chamber focused on him. Earth Command had authorized him to share historical information and training footage. But the aliens were asking about current capabilities, and that was far beyond his authority. That would require authorization from Earth's highest military leadership. He said finally. The silence that followed lasted for a long time. 7 alien species were realizing that what they had seen was just the beginning of human military capability. And none of them were sure they wanted to know what came next. The message from Earth Command arrived at Concordia Prime 12 hours after the council meeting ended. Admiral Morrison read it twice before calling Lisa Carter to his quarters. General Hayes was authorizing a full demonstration of current human military capabilities. They want us to show them everything? Lisa asked as she sat down across from Morrison's desk. Not everything, Morrison replied, but enough to satisfy their questions and hopefully prevent them from asking for more. Captain Amy Rodriguez arrived from the human military section of the station. She was a combat veteran who had fought in the Kethmori campaign and understood exactly how different human tactics were from alien methods. Captain Rodriguez will be handling the tactical demonstration, Morrison explained. She has clearance to discuss combined operations doctrine and urban warfare protocols. Lisa felt her stomach tighten. Urban warfare? Are we sure that is wise? Morrison showed her the orders from Earth. General Hayes believes that partial truth has created more problems than complete honesty might. The aliens think we have super weapons. The reality is both better and worse than that. The next morning, the council chamber was packed. Word had spread through the diplomatic community that humans were finally going to reveal their military secrets. Representatives from a dozen species had requested permission to observe. Counselor Vexton called the session to order. His blue, crystal skin was darker than normal, showing his nervousness. Ambassador Carter, we appreciate Earth's willingness to share this information. We hope it will help us understand human capabilities better. Captain Rodriguez activated the main display, and the first footage appeared. It showed human Marines conducting live fire exercises on a mock city built specifically for training purposes. The aliens watched as human forces coordinated simultaneous attacks from air, ground, and orbital positions. This is standard urban assault doctrine, Rodriguez explained. When human forces need to capture a defended city, we use what we call combined arms tactics. The footage showed fighter aircraft bombing specific buildings while ground troops advanced through the streets. Artillery strikes eliminated defensive positions while orbital platforms provided precise fire support. Counselor Ixara's crystal body flickered through several colors. The destruction level seems very high for a training exercise. This represents actual combat conditions, Rodriguez said. We train as we fight. The aliens watched human soldiers moving through the destroyed buildings with methodical efficiency. Every potential threat was eliminated immediately. Every defensive position was destroyed rather than bypassed. Your soldiers seem to assume that all civilians are potential enemies, Counselor Nethka observed. Rodriguez nodded. In urban combat environments, the distinction between combatant and non-combatant becomes unclear. Our doctrine prioritizes mission success and troop survival. Dr. Walsh had returned to provide historical context. Human cities have always been military targets during wartime. We learned long ago that controlling population centers is essential for victory. The presentation continued with footage of human forces practicing planetary assault scenarios. The aliens watched landing craft delivering thousands of troops while orbital bombardment eliminated ground-based defenses. This appears to be preparation for invading inhabited worlds, Unit 779 stated in its mechanical voice. Planetary assault doctrine is standard military planning, Rodriguez confirmed. Every human military unit trains for multiple environment operations. Counselor Zephon's tentacles moved in agitation. But surely such tactics would only be used against hostile species? Rodriguez and Morrison exchanged glances. Our forces train for any possible scenario, Rodriguez said carefully. Military preparedness requires planning for all contingencies. The next footage showed the coordination between different human military branches. Space forces, atmospheric, fighters, ground troops, and support units all working together in a single operation. No alien species has ever seen this level of integration, Dr. Walsh explained. Most galactic military thinking treats each service as separate entities. The aliens watched human commanders directing the movement of hundreds of ships and thousands of personnel with precision that seemed impossible to achieve. How do you coordinate so many units simultaneously? Vexthan asked. Standardized doctrine and extensive training, Rodriguez replied. Every human military officer studies the same tactical principles. Every unit practices the same operational procedures. Captain Rodriguez activated the next set of recordings. These files show our nuclear warfare protocols. The chamber became completely silent as footage appeared of human crews practicing nuclear weapon deployment. The aliens saw missiles being loaded, submarines preparing for launch, and bomber crews running attack simulations. Each of these weapons can destroy a major city, Rodriguez explained. Our current arsenal contains approximately 8,000 nuclear warheads. Counselor Yithmar's stone-like body made grinding sounds. 8,000 planet-killing weapons? City-killing weapons, Rodriguez corrected. It would take much more to destroy an entire planet. The distinction did not seem to comfort the aliens. The presentation reached its climax with footage of human forces practicing what they called decapitation strikes. The aliens watched simulated attacks designed to eliminate enemy leadership and command structures in the opening minutes of a conflict. The objective is to end wars before they fully begin, Dr. Walsh explained. By eliminating the enemy's ability to coordinate resistance, we can achieve victory with minimal casualties on both sides. Counselor Ixara was flashing bright red now. You practice assassinating government leaders? We practice targeting military command structures, Rodriguez said. In human warfare doctrine, the fastest way to end a conflict is to destroy the enemy's ability to fight back. Colonel Steve Parker had been observing quietly from the back of the chamber. He was a strategic planning officer who had helped develop some of the doctrine being discussed. Without thinking, he spoke up. Of course, this footage shows our restraint. Protocols, Parker said. These are limited engagement scenarios designed to minimize collateral damage. The chamber erupted in alien voices speaking multiple languages simultaneously. Admiral Morrison felt his blood pressure rising as he realized what Parker had just implied. When the noise died down, Counselor Vexthan asked the question that Morrison had been dreading. Colonel Parker, what do you mean by restraint protocols? Parker looked around the chamber and suddenly understood his mistake. I mean that these exercises assume we want to preserve infrastructure and minimize civilian casualties. And if you did not want to preserve infrastructure? Counselor Nefka asked. Parker looked at Morrison for guidance, but the Admiral's expression told him he was on his own. Then we would use different protocols. What kind of different protocols? Ziphon pressed. Morrison stood up quickly. That level of detail requires higher authorization than we currently have. But the damage was done. 7 alien species were now staring at the human delegation with expressions that mixed fear and disbelief. Counselor Ixara asked the question that would change everything. Are you telling us that what we have seen represents the minimum level of destruction humans consider acceptable? The silence stretched for almost a minute before Morrison answered. What you have seen represents standard operational doctrine for limited conflicts. Limited conflicts, Vexthan repeated slowly. What would unlimited conflict look like? Morrison realized that there was no good answer to that question. Anything he said would either be a lie or would terrify the aliens even more than they already were. That is classified information, he said finally. The 7 counselors looked at each other with expressions that needed no translation. They had asked to understand human military capabilities. What they were learning was that human approaches to warfare were fundamentally different from anything in their experience, and they were beginning to realize that they might not want to know how different those approaches really were. General Patricia Hayes arrived at Concordia Prime 3 days later with a decision that would change the galaxy forever. The partial revelations had created more fear and suspicion than complete honesty could possibly cause. Earth Command had decided to reveal the full scope of human military doctrine. Lisa Carter met the general at the docking bay with obvious relief. The past 72 hours had been a nightmare of diplomatic damage control as alien species demanded explanations for what they had seen. General, the situation has gotten much worse, Lisa said as they walked toward the diplomatic quarters. 3 species have filed formal complaints with the Alliance Council. The Zenthari are demanding immediate inspections of all human military installations. Patricia nodded grimly. I expected as much. That is why I am here. We are going to tell them everything. Admiral Morrison joined them in the secure briefing room. Everything? Are you sure that is wise? Patricia opened her briefcase and removed a datapad marked with the highest security classifications. We have reached the point where partial truth is more dangerous than complete honesty. The aliens think we are hiding superweapons. They need to understand that our advantage comes from thinking differently about warfare itself. The Emergency Council session was called for that evening. Word had spread throughout the diplomatic community that Earth's highest military officer was bringing new revelations. The chamber was packed with observers from every Alliance species. Counselor Vexton opened the session with obvious tension. General Hayes, we appreciate your personal attention to this matter. The Council requires complete transparency about human military capabilities. Patricia stood at the center of the chamber surrounded by alien representatives. Counselors, what I'm about to share with you is classified at the highest levels of Earth's government. This information will help you understand why human military doctrine appears so unusual compared to your own. She activated her display system and the first images appeared. They showed star maps with human military planning zones covering the entire galaxy. Human strategic doctrine divides the galaxy into operational theaters, Patricia began. Every region of space has been analyzed for potential military significance. The aliens studied the maps with growing confusion. Human military planning covered not just enemy territory but allied systems as well? General Hayes, Counselor Ixara said slowly, these maps show Alliance member systems marked as potential targets. Correct, Patricia replied. Human military doctrine requires contingency planning for all possible scenarios. We have detailed battle plans for fighting every species in this chamber. The statement caused an immediate uproar. Alien voices filled the chamber, speaking in dozens of languages. Patricia waited for the noise to die down before continuing. Please understand that this is not because we expect war with Alliance members. It is because professional military planning means being prepared for any possibility. She changed the display to show economic analysis charts. These files contain complete economic warfare strategies for every known civilization. Industrial targets that would cripple war production. Trade routes that could be disrupted to cause supply shortages. Financial systems that could be attacked to create economic collapse. Counselor Zephon's tentacles were moving rapidly. You have planned how to destroy our economies? We have planned how to defeat any potential enemy through economic warfare, Patricia corrected. The fastest way to end a war is to make it impossible for the enemy to continue fighting. The presentation continued with psychological warfare analysis. Human intelligence had developed detailed profiles of every alien species, including their cultural weaknesses and psychological vulnerabilities. This section covers propaganda techniques specific to each species, Patricia explained. Methods for undermining enemy morale and encouraging civilian populations to stop supporting their governments. Dr. Walsh provided context. Human history shows that wars are won in the minds of populations as much as on battlefields. Psychological operations are considered essential to victory. Unit 779 processed this information with mechanical precision. You have developed specific methods for manipulating each alliance species? We have developed methods for information warfare against any potential opponent, Patricia confirmed. Understanding how different species think is crucial for effective psychological operations. The display changed to show orbital bombardment doctrine. The aliens watched simulations of human forces systematically destroying planetary infrastructure. From space. Standard planetary siege protocols involve targeting power generation, communication networks, transportation hubs, and industrial centers, Patricia said. The objective is to reduce enemy worlds to pre-industrial capability. Counselor. Nethka made sounds of distress. You would bomb civilian populations back to primitive conditions? We would bomb military-industrial targets that happen to support civilian populations, Patricia clarified. Modern warfare recognizes that economic infrastructure and military capability are inseparable. The presentation reached its most disturbing section with footage of human forces practicing what they called species termination scenarios. The aliens watched simulations of campaigns designed not just to defeat enemies but to ensure they could never threaten humanity again. In extreme circumstances, human doctrine allows for the complete elimination of hostile species, Patricia said quietly. This is considered a last resort, but it remains an available option. The chamber had become completely silent. 7 alien civilizations were realizing that humanity planned warfare on a scale that none of them had ever imagined. Counselor. Vexton asked the question that everyone was thinking. General Hayes, how many different ways have you planned to destroy us? Patricia's answer was simple and devastating. All of them. She explained that human military planning covered every possible method of species elimination. Biological weapons. Designed for specific alien physiologies. Nuclear bombardment of home worlds. Economic warfare to cause societal collapse. Psychological operations to promote civil war. We do not plan to use these methods, Patricia emphasized. But we plan for the capability to use them if circumstances require it. The aliens sat in stunned silence as they processed this information. What they had thought was excessive military preparation was actually comprehensive strategic planning for the extinction of their entire civilizations. Counselor Ixara finally spoke. Why are you telling us this? Patricia looked around the chamber at the frightened alien faces. Because you asked? You wanted to know how humans approach warfare. This is the complete answer? The immediate aftermath was chaos. Several species demanded emergency security meetings. The Xanthari began calculating whether their own military forces could defend against human capabilities. The Aquatic Federation started discussing withdrawal from human-occupied systems, but something unexpected happened over the following weeks. Instead of demanding human expulsion from the Alliance, the alien species began deferring to human military leadership. When pirate raids threatened trade routes, they asked for human assistance. When border disputes arose, they requested human mediation. The galaxy had learned that humanity was not just another member species. They were something fundamentally different. A civilization that approached conflict with methodical thoroughness that other species found both terrifying and oddly comforting. Lisa Carter found herself signing new treaties that gave humanity unprecedented autonomy in galactic affairs. Not because the aliens trusted humans, but because they recognized that a species capable of such systematic destruction might be better left to govern itself. The final irony became clear in the months that followed. The Alliance did not fragment or collapse. Instead, it became stronger under unofficial human protection. Other species began adopting human military advisors and requesting training in human tactical methods. Admiral Morrison observed the changes from his office aboard Concordia Prime. They are afraid of us, he told Lisa during one of their regular meetings. Yes, Lisa agreed. But they are more afraid of facing the galaxy without us. The transformation was complete when the first joint Alliance human military exercise took place. Alien forces watched human units demonstrate the tactics that had seemed so extreme in the briefing room. But now they saw those same tactics being used to defend Alliance worlds against external threats. Counselor Vexton summed up the new reality during a private conversation with Lisa. We asked about human warfare because we were curious about your capabilities. We never imagined that the answer would change our entire understanding of what warfare could be. The galaxy had learned to live with the knowledge that humanity approached conflict differently than anyone else. They did not ask humans to change their methods. Instead, they worked to ensure that those methods were never used against Alliance members. The final scene of this transformation occurred during a council meeting 6 months later. A new threat had emerged from outside the galaxy, and the Alliance needed to respond with military force. For the first time in galactic history, 7 alien species unanimously voted to place their military forces under human command. Not because they loved human methods, but because they had learned that when survival was at stake, they wanted humanity